Cardinals Corner from Arizona Sports.
Cardinals Corner from Arizona Sports with Tyler Drake and Lauren Koval.
Hey everybody, welcome back to this episode of Cardinals Corner. We did put an over-under on last week's podcast for 11:15 p.m. podcast time. It's 11:10.
Cash those tickets, underbettors. Cash them.
We're pretty good guessers at this.
Yeah, you know.
And we are coming off of a Cardinals victory, so ever more exciting to discuss in what will be Kellen Olson's goodbye podcast, if
What
we
a
will.
way to go out, pal. Wow.
With a victory. All right, let's start with the superstar of this game for the Arizona Cardinals, James Conner. What'd you think of his performance?
He was amazing. I wrote in our rapid reactions that that was one of the best individual performances the Cardinals have had in a couple of years. I think he was miraculous. I think that this is a completely different game if he doesn't make the play that he did to force the fumble. Like that's almost where I want to start. These are always difficult podcasts to do, and what I mean by these is I've done game after night of podcasts for Suns postseason for a couple of years now, and when there are games like this, my first intuition and instinct is to go back and watch the game because 5 million things happened. Like, we could rank the top 30 the top 30 inflection points of this game, and like 14 of them would be James Conner, probably. Mm-hmm. He was amazing, and I think that the shifts in momentum were pretty constant throughout this game, but he provided like a stabilization that they so desperately needed during a game that, like I said, wasn't so much back and forth as it was just the game was turning here and then turning there and then going there. And then it's like they're down, Chargers all the way down to the 1. Now they're driving. Clayton Tune. Like, it's just so many weird things were happening. And to be able to just keep giving that guy the ball, 19 for 101 on the ground, and then 2 for 51. There is like the old adage in football that backs like him get better as the game goes on, but that's actually what happened tonight. It was wild.
There is something to be said for he hit that special 10 carry number that we discuss so much with 19 carries. He actually hit 10 carries before halftime. He hit it right around the 6-minute mark of that second half, right when they were driving down, which would eventually end in a touchdown to Greg Dortch. So lots to be excited about from James Conner. He did not record a touchdown in this game, but he didn't even need to because he was doing everything right for that team. The punch out is really important, not only because it changes the direction that you thought that Cardinals game was going to go in. The Chargers have the most forced 3-and-outs on first drives in the NFL. So with that in mind, and then seeing the Cardinals, Kyler Murray's interception to the Cardinals lineman, who then starts to run it back, to then have it punched out, and then have, because they had possession, the Cardinals have it 1st and 10, even though they somehow just lost 30 yards. All of that in like the first 4 minutes of the game.
It was wild. I wanted to give a huge shout out to Michael Wilson, because if he was even a half step out of the play where he does not get to that ball, because the defensive back next to him, it was one of the 5th-round rookies for the Chargers. I can't remember which one it was, but he was just as engaged in the play as Wilson was. So if he was a half second off, by the way, the easiest thing, something looks so easy, and yet we see how difficult it is, and that is diving on a ball at full speed. He made that look really easy, and we know as football fans that is really hard to do. I cannot emphasize enough how big of a play that was, because that's 3 free points right there, because Dicker was automatic in this game from any sort of distance, and they could have scored a touchdown on that drive. And then there was 2 more punches in this game. I texted you, the beloved Chicago Bears fan, the beloved Peanut Tillman fan that you are. This was a Peanut Punch tribute show, pretty much. It was crazy. Like, there was the actual punch animation from 2 different guys, pretty much. They saved at least 6 points on those 2 punches. There was the more dramatic one, of course, was Starling Thomas, and then Jalen Thompson maybe making an even better play than Michael Wilson did by staying in bounds somehow and keeping that ball in. That happening in the first quarter of the game, I think, completely kept the game's flow in limbo, which is desperately what the Cardinals needed, because I think what you and I feared and why we picked them to lose, and lose quite significantly, was the Chargers dominating on the ground.
Which did not happen at all.
The Cardinals had 3 times as many yards on the ground. They had 181 to 59. I get how the Cardinals did it, and it's a huge credit to Connor and their offensive line. I got to watch that game back probably twice to figure out what they were doing defensively.
Yes.
And then compare it to like the last couple of games, because I don't know.
I'm going to jump back to your Sterling Thomas point there, because that is actually the play of the game to me, is his punch out. It's easy now to sit back, having watched that entire game, and go, that's the play of the game to me. As it was actually happening, we're like, wow, what an incredible play. What a momentum shift. We just saved points off the board. That single-handedly took a guaranteed 3 points off the board for the Chargers with how good Dicker is for them. They were automatically in field goal range. It also arguably took 6 or 7 points off the board for them because of how close they would have been to the end zone and how reliable that offense had been for them in previous games. Justin Herbert coming off the best game of his career last week. And so the expectation was they're at least going to put points on the board. In a game where you win by 2, 17 to 15, keeping minimum 3 points off the board, that's how you just won that game. I look back at that play and I go, Sterling Thomas just won the Arizona Cardinals that game.
Devastated that this wasn't a scoregami, by the way. I just checked and the score has happened 14 times. To be in attendance for a scoregami would have been a true delight for me. What a jump scare, by the way, of Jalen Reagor. It's like, Jalen Reagor's on this team. Oh, that's why we didn't know you're on this team and why you faded into obscurity over your short NFL career. Where do you want to go next? Like, I'm going to allow you to kind of take the wheel here and guide us, because there are so many different... Justin Herbert was really, 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 really good in this game.
I think, you know what? Let's do a little QB comparison.
Sure.
I'll start by just reading off the stats, then we can jump into what exactly they mean. So Justin Herbert, he was 27 of 39. He had 349 yards. Sacked 3 times. That's something we'll come back to, because that's a key of the game right there. Kyler Murray, 14 of 26, 145 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, was not sacked. This is a statistical game where you look, I looked at this stat sheet right when it came out from the Cardinals, and then I'm looking at it again in front of me. I'm not a laptop girly, but I got my laptop out in front of me.
Every now and then you whip it out.
Every now and then. And because of that, as I'm looking at these, I go, I watched the game. Justin Herbert had 349 yards compared to Kyler Murray's 145. Yes, Kyler did record 64 yards rushing. Justin Herbert only recorded 8. But I look at those and I go, how did the Chargers not put up more points than 15? What were they doing? What was the Cardinals defense doing to stop Justin Herbert from scoring?
Which further emphasizes the fumbles and the punches, because if one of those doesn't happen, they lose this game probably. And we can go into detail later about like the specifics of moments in this game, like the roughing, I think the unnecessary roughness.
Let's just jump in. Go for it. Too much pressure?
Was it a penalty, Lauren?
How did
it look on TV with multiple replays? Because I just got 1 or 2 looks. I was there.
First look, I went, ooh, Cardinals lucked out on that one. Second look, the angle from the sideline looking onto the field, he gets hit in the head, coming from, I forget who it is. I don't want to say Colson, but I think it was Colson.
It was a double team situation. He got hit in the head twice.
It was, and the way that Colson, I believe it's him specifically, comes in at the end, he does hit him in the head. And any contact above the head, above the shoulders, that's when you throw that flag. So technically it did fit the rule book.
Really proud of you for visually representing that in a way where you got to show your nails off. That was really great of you. I'm very proud of you for doing that. Harrison in the locker room said after the game that he didn't think it was a flag when it happened, but also it's just because he's like mid-catch and then is like, oh crap, I just dropped the ball. Ow.
Yes.
Like, I don't think his like reaction was that he got like absolutely mauled in the head, which is I think where a lot of the difficulty in these situations lie, when we go helmet to helmet contact and just what counts, what doesn't. Should all of it count? Should only some of it count? Like what?
And I think the NFL is now making a push for all of it to count. Anytime you're hit in the head, immediate penalty. And also somebody like Marvin Harrison Jr. coming out of concussion protocol this week to play in this game.
So, to your point on Herbert, 399 yards combined in his first 3 games of the year. And then he has 349 in this game. The Chargers this year in their wins on the ground, they have 176, 219, and 128 yards. In their losses, they have 61 and 55. You and I talked about this on the preview pod. It just there didn't seem to be a world with the injuries that the defensive line had and just how poor they've been defending the run pretty much all year. It just didn't seem like they had this capable in them. I'm guessing we should shout out Nick Rawlis and give him a lot of credit for what happened. But again, I just got to watch it back because I don't even know. You're watching it in the moment, and it's a lot of things happening at once. But yeah, they deserve a ton of credit because this is a totally different game if the Chargers are able to have even one drive where they established the run. That didn't happen. Like, I think Dobbins had one drive where I believe he had 3 carries in a row and then went for 19 yards. And before that, it was like 6 carries for 14 yards. But then it shut down. That was it. That was it for them. Their passing game, and to speak to Herbert, I thought that he was... The funny thing about this game is Herbert was easily the better quarterback, but he was not in a position or couldn't make the one throw that really changed the game. Kyler makes the biggest play of the game, arguably, and that's it. Like, Kyler didn't have that good of a game, but he made one amazing play with his legs. He made a couple, but he made one in particular for the touchdown, and that was it. That won them the game. There were several moments in this game that won them one, but you look at who's Herbert's throwing to. 11 targets for Will Dissly. We know Joshua Palmer, like we know Ladd McConkey. Fehoko, I did not know he existed until 3 hours ago. I was like, who is this individual? Now I know who he is. The third tight end, Smart, no idea who that is. Like, no offense towards those guys, but it was just like I needed identification on these guys. Like, every time I saw them, and yet Herbert just keeps finding them open. And this is where we can get to the overall defense and not just the run defense. I think it's a complicated explanation because they did get to the quarterback, but when they did not get to the quarterback, oh my gosh, did he have all day to throw? And the receivers... It was funny because we were texting about it in about the fourth quarter. There was the 99-yard drive, but the drive when they started on the 1 where it was just 8-yard completion, 15-yard completion, 11-yard completion.
And that's what I think Herbert does really well. Like, as a quarterback, something that if the main compare and contrast between him and Kyler to me is Justin Herbert saw an opportunity where he needed the Chargers to score. The Chargers needed to switch something. They needed to get some momentum going in their direction. And in doing so, he starts rattling off these chunk plays down the field to wide receivers you barely know. This isn't your Keenan Allen and your Mike Williams Chargers that you've grown so accustomed to. There are a lot of new faces on this team.
No Vincent Jackson walking through that door, Lauren. No.
It's not happening. I'm sorry. Right there, I was like, oh, is
Keenan McCardle? Never.
No.
You kidding me?
No.
Tony Gates?
It's
No.
Will Dissly. It's Ladd McConkey. They're walking through the door.
Yes, I called him Tony. I don't regret it.
No. Don't have any regrets. No regrets on a podcast. So because of that, I think Justin Herbert did a really good job in just getting them down the field in these chunk plays, exploiting the Arizona Cardinals cornerback room, which we've discussed multiple times is not the strongest room for this team. And so rattling off these chunk plays, getting the defense tired on that drive that started on the 1, they looked tired, the Cardinals defense, by the time they got to midfield because the Chargers ran hurry up. They ran no huddle. They rattled off these chunk plays where we don't have to meet at the line and we don't have to discuss what we're doing. So the Cardinals don't know. Are we blitzing? Are we bringing pressure? And that's when Justin Herbert had time to shine, when he had that availability in the pocket, which he didn't always have throughout this entire game.
And it was a weird performance from him. Kevin and I were talking about it. He had a tweet. There was one on that drive when he started in his own end zone. There was one target that he threw like at a dude's feet and 2 yards behind him. And then he had that third down just rope to someone. And I was like, what's happening to you? Are you all right, man? I'm going through my notes here and I count 4 different points where the Cardinals could have lost this game and they didn't. On the first drive, their 6 plays that the Chargers had were for 11, 7, 4, 15, 6, and 42 yards. It was like, oh boy, here we go. And then there's the punch out by Thomas there. There was the decision at the end of the first half where it was 4th and 2 on the 50 with 1:52 left, and you're wondering, should you go for it or not? They don't. The Chargers get points at the end of the half. There was the Clayton Tune back-to-back carries on 3rd and 4th and 1 when you're don't give the ball to Kyler Murray or James Conner, who at that point had really been established as the guy in the game. And then there was the play that I didn't actually catch in real time, and I was texting with you to get confirmation. Orlovsky apparently pointed it out on the broadcast where Marv was wide open, but the pocket broke down too quickly. And then Kyler had the miss on Zay Jones on a slant that looked like it was going to get a first down on 3rd and 10. They punt, and then McConkey gets a big catch to get Dicker in range. He kicks it good from 49. Those were 4 different points in the game when it looked like what had just occurred was going to lose them the game. And then whether it was the punch, whether it was them not necessarily breaking and just holding them to field goals in those 2 different situations, there was just like enough for them to win this game. I jokingly told you after some Bears wins that you guys had earlier in the year, they're like, all wins count the same, whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, your win is just the same as the 64-0 win that another team got. And that's the mentality that I have with this game, because heading into the bye, they had 4 games. 2-2 is like a non-negotiable, has to happen. And if you can just at least get to 4 wins at the bye, if not maybe 5, then you're just in a decent enough territory to at least like reset and try and figure some stuff out. Because guess what, Lauren? Marvin Harrison Jr. only caught 50% of his targets again and only had 6. Like, guess what? The pass rush wasn't that great again. Guess what? There were more injuries. Dennis Gardeck got hurt, did not return. Sean Murphy-Bunting re-injured or just had the same
re-aggravated
his neck. He did not return. But so there were things wrong in this game for sure. Like the passing game, it was 350 yards to 150 in the air as we covered. So there were things wrong with this game for sure for the Cardinals. But at this point, it's not even that they're like coming up for air. It's just like that they're like saving time. Like you just cannot have your season end when you're so far below the potential that you have as a team.
Yes, and I think that's like so beautifully summed up.
Thank
right
you.
There, into like a little nutshell. Is
Thank you.
When the Cardinals had the opportunity to get first in their division with a win tonight. They won. They needed the Seahawks to lose to the Falcons, and they needed the Niners to lose to the Chiefs. One of those 2 things happened. But the Cardinals are now 2-0 in this, like, heading into, if you look at the NFC West as a whole, 2-0 in that division. And they're competing for that first spot with the Seahawks constantly, just as everybody predicted at the beginning of the season, right? Cardinals, Seahawks, right up at top. Let's see how that goes. The key is to get back to 500. I know it sounds really basic. I know it sounds really plain. It's not very exciting.
It sounds really hard.
It sounds really hard because it is really hard. And now you're coming off a short week of rest and you're heading back to the East Coast. You're going over to Miami. You got to face off against Tua, who looks like Tua will play. Tua is attempting to come back to play against the Cardinals.
Everything that is being said and reported is that he is going to play. Again, this is like a complicated situation with his concussions. If he wakes up feeling slightly off, like keep him off the field for the love of everything, please. It's an interesting 3 weeks because we'll see what the Bears look like after this weekend. They're playing a Commanders team that might be without Jane Daniels. They could very well move to 5-2. I'll knock on everything for you. There's the wood. I got it for you there, sister. I got you. And then you got the New York Jets who, man, I just hate to see it happen. It's just so unfortunate.
I thought you were going to sit in dead silence, and I was like, yep, that's the Jets.
I just loved the quote yesterday from Rodgers that was like, I'm going to take accountability. Like, I got to be a little bit better. We also have to run the ball better. Like, he immediately blamed someone else. And it's like, oh,
yeah,
buddy,
hey.
I thought you had a stroke there or something. Nope, you're still in there. Hey, bud. Yeah, so 3-4. If you go 2-2, like I said, you're at 4-6, which isn't the end of the world at all. But all of a sudden, like, you look at these 2 games. I know the Miami trip, like you said, is difficult. I know it's Tua. But let's be real. Like, Miami's not been good this year. You and Tyler are going to get into a lot of details of not only what has happened when Tua has been in and out, but also what has happened in their other facets. Like Tyreek Hill just doesn't exist anymore, and like that can't happen even when me or you was playing quarterback. You know, like that just can't happen. Chicago is a team that I think is good, a good team with a great defense, but they are certainly vulnerable. All it takes is like rookie quarterbacks are going to have 3 or 4 games where you're like, ooh, that's a rookie quarterback.